Hey, happy hump day. I think. Is it Wednesday? Yeah.
It is Wednesday. Yeah. I guess every day is hump day for you.
Ideally. I'm not sure if that has happened yet, but we'll see. Anyways, welcome back. Another episode of Go FUD Yourself. I almost said Go Fuck Yourself, which is kind of interesting, but that's not the name of the pod.
Well, it could be today with some of the news we have.
Yeah. I mean, usually we do FUs on Friday, but today I've got a few of them, I think, that I'm ready to say FU to. What, Kiara, are we talking about?
Okay, well, we've got double SEC. We have, for some reason, crypto and AI being lumped in together and the SEC trying to regulate AI. So we'll talk about that. And the SEC also has some updates on ETFs. We've got a little bit, it's not a super degen day, but we've got a little bit about Metamask. Binance is in the news every day. So we should just have a little Binance segment every day with a little image for them. Weird news from them, not unexpected news, just strange that we have to talk about them every day. And then Shibarium's doing some stuff. Circle's doing something with a stable coin in Europe. And we've got a little bit more about AI, real-time payments, and how AI might revolutionize crypto, which maybe is why the SEC is trying to lump them together.
It's definitely an interesting news day. I forgot it was degen day. There's not a lot of degen stuff today. But I'm definitely happy to be back after being MIA yesterday. Who did you have as a guest?
Olin from DFK. We mostly talked about if we should get paid in fiat or crypto. It was great.
Nice. Yeah, I should see him today or tomorrow, actually.
Oh yeah, where are you headed? Fort Lauderdale?
I guess it's
today.
So
it looks cool. He talked about it yesterday. I said on stream that I hoped somebody pied him in the face, and he said he welcomed somebody trying. So maybe give that a go.
I'm gonna run up and pie him. That'll be perfect.
Okay.
All right. So we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. Let's not mess around any longer than we have to.
All right, let's go.
We will just get this party freaking started. Oh, hey, we have a new song today.
Oh yeah.
A new
song.
We're gonna play it. Everybody let us know if you like it or if you like it. Those are the only options. You just have to like it. All right, let's freaking go.
I really like that our graphic designer believes I'm covered in tattoos at all times.
I think it's like foreshadowing. So
maybe that's what I'll do with my my investing bonus or something.
There you go.
Go get all the tattoos at once.
You know, I was thinking, considering I have a few tattoos, what would be really cool is if there was like a machine that could tattoo you in like a second. And the whole thing would be done. It'd be like like pressing t-shirts.
Yeah.
Graphics. It'd be kind of like that. Or they could use Anastasia and do like a whole limb at one time. And you just go to sleep, you wake up, tattooed. Boom. Anyways.
You don't like sitting through the sessions?
It's a bit of a rite of passage, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you have to earn it. Like it sucks. Like no matter what anybody says, it doesn't feel great.
Right.
But I mean, it's pushing your limits of pain tolerance. I think is interesting. I like it. It's annoying, but yeah, it's a bit of a rite of passage. I think you have to earn it.
Is that your segue? Are you pushing the limits of your pain tolerance by talking about the SEC every day?
No, quite the opposite. Actually, I continuously add more and more pain on. I have less tolerance, I think, every time I talk about it. But okay, so what's the current?
Okay, so number one, nothing's actually been done, but Gary Gensler is addressing the U.S. House Financial Services Committee to talk about updates to SEC rules in terms of crypto and AI. So in his statement, he basically has said that he wants to apply security laws to most crypto tokens. We already know that. That's not such a big deal. But predictive data analytics and AI regulation, he also wants to fall under the SEC as essential for investor protection.
Yeah. So I have some thoughts on this one, as you can imagine.
I'm sure.
I do, in fact, understand slightly the angle from the SEC with respect to AI. And I think we'll talk about this in one of the later topics also. I kind of get it because one of the logical developments in AI tech is to create trading automation. And the challenge with that is currently, with AI in general, there's no recourse for improper information. So you can, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it to give you something, not often, but occasionally it hallucinates and gives you like some completely irrelevant answer. And you're just like, what the fuck? But when it comes to trading and investments and all of that stuff and trying to aggregate data and gain insights, if you're offering that as a service, what they're suggesting is that you're kind of under the RIA banner, Registered Investment Advisor banner, and you have some responsibilities from a consumer protection perspective, transparency, accountability, and so on. So I kind of get it. But the way that this is being explained is what's problematic to me. Like the SEC doesn't regulate AI at all. I think they're just maybe putting out some new, hopefully, we'll see when he does his testimony in Congress. Which is today, I think, right? Or tomorrow? Today or tomorrow? Tomorrow, maybe. Anyways, when he does his testimony, we'll figure out what he actually thinks. But I'm assuming they're just going to expand some of their policies to incorporate AI and LLMs into kind of the list of potentially regulated actors if you're going to use it from an investment perspective. Fine. Why Gensler is trying to update those policies right now while there's active AI regulation discussions happening is kind of puzzling to me. Like, why? Like, let's figure out.
Well, he wants to have a political career, and so if he can just add that to his little portfolio docket, that's nice for him.
Yeah. Well, okay. I just can't stand Gensler lately. Like this.
I know.
I struggle with it. At least he hasn't put out too many of those condescending, patronizing
videos lately. Oh man, I've kind of missed them.
Anyways, all of this to say, the challenge with adding, what they're saying is adding more to the guidelines for crypto and the policies for crypto. As far as I understand, they don't have the latitude to do that. Like that's a Congress lawmaker type thing, not Gensler / administrative state. Make those broad changes and then enforcing on that premise. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, he's getting a lot of pushback lately, Gensler in general, from both Democrats and Republicans. And finally, we're starting to see Democrats had been kind of aligned in opposing crypto just as a general rule because there was some vocal minorities in the Democratic Party that hated it. Elizabeth Warren, part of her endorsement of Biden was an agreement that Biden would allow her and a bunch of her staffers into the White House as staffers for now financial policy, which is insane. You let a complete socialist dictate financial policy in America, and look what happens. We have inflation like crazy. We have interest rates that are bananas. And we have an emerging market that can't find a home in the US in crypto. So wacky. All of this to say, what's exciting about this of late, and we're seeing more and more of this, is Democrats coming out, even some of the ones that are part of the far left squad, so to speak, with AOC and others, they're just realizing that their constituents want this. Like this is leading to greater freedom and control over your finances and over your financial opportunities. Even if regulated, people want it. And so they're saying, hey, like, stop preventing the rest of us from being able to access this type of technology. Let's just figure out how we can structure it so that it works. Yeah.
Easily pulls us to, there is a lot of pushback because the SEC still has not accepted Bitcoin ETFs. And so quite a bipartisan group is urging them to do so. A judge in DC, a number of other big names are saying, hey, this has been really difficult. This has been really tedious. There's no reason for this. And we demand that you approve the Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah. Again, I think this is another example of, both sides of the aisle saying, like, come on, guys, like we've got to have some movement. Fine. If you want to try to enforce, the fringes currently are the most obvious FTXs of the world and so on. great, go ahead and do that. But at the same time, I mean, you can't just be strict opposition to the space in general. You've got to, you know, the things that are viable, the things that we know function a certain way, we should be able to find structures to deal with them. It's not like we don't understand Bitcoin after whatever, 14 years of it being wild. So I don't know. I think this is great. I think eventually this pressure, hopefully all of us, anybody listening, oh, hey, EV, BCP, what's going on? Anybody listening, you know, make sure that this is the time where every vote counts, and make this a piece of, in the next election cycle globally. Make this an important piece of who you're voting for and the questions you're asking and so on. And if enough of us with our single vote make this a priority, I think we'll end up with a much better environment for the space going forward, and for America in general, and North America, Canada, other Western jurisdictions. I think the faster we get over this hump of fighting politically about this, I think we can just come to a better solution, and it benefits everybody. So
also, like, maybe that would open up some time for them to focus on the de-dollarization movement and how they could prevent that. Let's talk about some degen stuff.
I just think there's so many problems that we should be focusing on, immigration and homelessness.
There's so many different pieces. And how do you decide which things to prioritize? And also, how do you determine if your political candidate is bullshitting you or is actually going to do the work on that, right? Just because it's in their platform doesn't mean they're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
The thrill. Okay, degen stuff. We get like two degens. Ramp is now on Metamask. Are you ready for that? Did we know that was happening?
Yeah. Well.
So they had talked about having fiat on-ramps and off-ramps integrated into Metamask. I assumed that was going to be proprietary. Ramp now is officially on Metamask. So they'll eventually have seamless access in 150 countries. I took a look at what they're going to be supporting. So there'll be bank transfers online. There will be bank transfers from the bank. There'll be Visa and MasterCard, Apple Pay, and Google Pay. A lot of these are worldwide, like totally global. And then there are some extra little things like Pix is going to be in Brazil, and there's a couple of really specific regional options that they'll have as well. You'll probably be able to settle within 1 to 2 days unless you are in Germany. And the idea here is that you can use your MetaMask for actual retail payments, and you can use your actual retail fiat money to purchase things in crypto online, all while being decentralized, still no sex involved.
Yeah, I mean, MetaMask has had an on-ramp for quite a while.
Yeah.
What this is all about, this announcement, is finally the off-ramp. And that's actually been a fairly big criticism of the space. A lot of these kind of bridging applications from fiat to crypto have been one way. Yeah. You can get money in through a lot of these service providers, but the only way to actually get money out is through centralized exchanges. And then there's, a whole bunch of fees in that process, and you're getting screwed a million different ways. So I think this is great. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how MetaMask gets addressed via regulation globally, because I mean, they have a pretty big proportion of the market cornered. And this, I mean, they're doing swap now, they're doing aggregation in the application. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Like you can do a lot of shit inside of MetaMask all of a sudden. And I mean, I think it's great. I think it's more functionality. It's a lot more similar using Ramp into MetaMask than many of the other multi-step processes that you have to send money to this exchange, then convert it to this asset on this chain because they only support 5 assets. Then you got to bridge it and all this other shit. So this really does help the user experience. Where I think this doesn't quite go far enough is it still requires MetaMask. It still requires, your key management and a lot of this stuff. And I think the meaningful next wave of adoption is going to come when we actually upgrade user experience. We get rid of a lot of these major friction points, bridging multiple steps to get in and out of an ecosystem. And we're getting there. I mean, the space is getting there with interop and cross-chain messaging, and there's a lot of infrastructure being built. But This is good, I think, for the space, especially in the short term. We'll have to see how they are addressed. I don't know. I'm a fan to a certain extent. Well, I will never use it.
No, but it's good that it exists. Actually, so one of the things Bolin and I were talking about yesterday in terms of getting paid. So I know you didn't watch that episode. A study came out that said 97% of people working in Web3 get paid in fiat. So with that in mind, those few 3% who get paid in crypto, if any of them were originally from Web 2, or if they were originally onboarded to Web 3 via their job, they might not know how to do anything other than on-ramp and off-ramp. Whereas something like this now allows them to use the tool, the one tool that they've been trained to use, which is Metamask, their one DeFi tool, and now they'll be able to do more with it. So I like it from that kind of perspective of like, a familiar tool is useful for people, but I don't love it because I don't love centralization. How do you feel about Shibarium and their quantum leap? Do you have thoughts?
Yeah. So I've always kind of struggled with Shiba and Doge and stuff like that because they really had no value proposition at all ever, really. Other than speculation. And so we're seeing this now in a few different directions. There's Barachain from another meme ecosystem. There's now this with Shiba. Doge has talked about a few different things. Bored Apes is building metaverse. You know, like they're all trying to do some stuff to expand. And so I don't hate this as a topic. I really hope, like they talk about their game-changing partnership with Now Nodes, and they talk about this incredible, 0.06 of a second confirmation times and response times. Like there's a lot of cool things, but what I don't understand is we're seeing a lot of very incremental innovative deployments. So like you'll see a layer 2 that is exactly the same as every other layer 2 with this tiny little change. And then it's another L2. And so now you're seeing, Shibarium, and they're going to maybe do some cool shit. Who knows? But is it going to be cool enough that it makes a difference? Is when we're already talking in many ecosystems, fairly high TPS, fairly scalable TPS to the extent that it's as good or better than the credit card networks globally, which is 4,500 TPS. Many blockchains can achieve that now, and much more. So, I mean, is that the 0 to 1 that they've got it from, 0.02 seconds down to 0.06 seconds? I don't think so. I don't think it's enough.
Well, maybe with their bots it is, right? They have trading bots now. So they just also introduced their sniper bot, buy bot, live pairing bot, and trending bot. And all I'm saying is that if those bots are making the trade, then the faster network probably is important as opposed to a human trade.
Well, I mean, the bots are still competing with other bots and other people. So if everybody has to wait 10 seconds,
I guess
they can still get their order in faster as long as there's not reordering of the blocks via MEV, which I don't know if they've prevented on Shibarium. I doubt it. So what I do like about this is that this Shibarium is very much focused in my opinion, to the existing crypto native type crowd. And I think what we're going to see in the next year or two, and I'm pretty biased on this, but what we're going to see is a shift towards regulation for almost every major protocol. We're not really going to have a choice. What I think will happen is there will be some ecosystems where they're trying to preserve the original fundamentals of crypto via anonymity, privacy, kind of that degen nature of ultimate personal responsibility, which I don't hate as a general rule. I just don't think it scales. It doesn't scale the space in general. So this could be interesting. This could be, a playground for a lot of new innovative technologies over time in an unregulated environment, because I haven't heard anything about them trying to go regulate it in any way, shape, or form. So we'll see. We'll see.
On regulation, Binance is leaving Russia, but not in the way that we've seen Binance leave anywhere else before. So I think this is interesting because typically Binance says, screw you, and they just kind of pack up and leave, and they get, maybe less than a week to get people to transfer their assets to some unknown place. Well, in Russia, they're actually being bought by a local business called ComX, and it'll take about a year for them to transfer out, and they'll be including educational pieces about how to get your assets from Binance to ComX. But I think this is interesting because acquisition is not a place that I thought we'd see Binance in, as in someone acquiring a leg of their company.
So I think I actually don't mind this, to be honest.
I don't mind it. It's not what I was expecting that headline to read.
Yeah. Now, I have questions about how this deal was consummated. I suspect there's maybe a little bit of pressure that was applied. And since there's so many Russians in Dubai, which is where CZ currently resides, as far as I have heard, you can't really run away from them, so to speak. You hide from Russia. So I don't know if they were like strongly encouraged to do this or if this made sense, but from a purely business perspective, they are being asked to leave many jurisdictions because their compliance approach doesn't match up with the direction these jurisdictions are going. The jurisdictions are saying, hey, Binance, we want you to abide by our rules. And Binance says, no, we don't think those rules should exist, so we're just going to bow out. The challenge is they spent a lot of money in some of these ecosystems, in particular in Europe and with Russia, acquiring users, building infrastructure. There is value. There's goodwill. There's assets under management. There is a lot of value in those jurisdictions. And I think in this case in particular, Russians are sanctioned from almost every other ecosystem. So they probably couldn't transfer their assets to another Binance platform because it's in fact not allowed. So this is a good way, in my opinion, to get something for the work they've done. I keep coming back to this. I don't know what their strategy could possibly be here, because they're pulling out of many of the major active nations because they don't want to adhere to the emerging compliance. Like, eventually that's going to be the majority of developed nations. Like, I don't understand what their approach is. Maybe that's why I'm not CZ, I guess. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
Also, world of regulation, global regulation. We have the EURC stablecoin expanding. I don't think that this is a surprise to anybody, but it is important to note, I guess. There are even a couple of firms in Latin America that have embraced EURC. Well,
for context, USD Euro is the largest by far Forex market globally. So, it's like a distant second place in terms of daily volume. And so mixing in a Euro stable in an ecosystem with a USD stable in an ecosystem provides a ton of optionality for many businesses and structured traders and so on in the space. And even, hedging currency risk, Forex risk. There's a lot of things that you can do with these assets. So this makes perfect sense to me. I'm a big fan. I was on the initial, one of the initial calls with EURC when they were announcing it coming out. We did a Twitter Spaces actually with Circle.
That's right.
And so I'm a big fan of it. I think it's absolutely necessary. I hope we see more of this. Non-CBDC, but fiat-denominated stablecoins managed by third parties, not centralized governments. It's still centralized. Like, Circle is still centralized and regulated, but it's not controlled directly by the Fed. And so for me, that's a good middle ground. So anyways, I really like this. What I don't understand is why Stellar? Like, Stellar must have paid for this, because there is just not enough activity on Stellar at all to justify this being their next deployment, because EURC is not on every major chain yet. So we'll see.
I mean, Stellar has ETH and AVAX. Maybe they just are trying to fill in the gaps.
I really don't mind this. I think the more options we have for currencies and stablecoins, especially if they're trusted, the better. Like, we have more than enough speculative assets, but we need to be able to, for portfolio composition and risk management, we need to be able to meaningfully, meaningfully address many of those risk areas, and more stables and more of these assets do that. So ultimately, I'm a pretty good fan. pretty big fan
Our
of.
final degen news today, which I know you won't be a fan of, is about a hack. So the Mixin network has experienced a hack. They had a breach in their cloud server database. It was third party, technically didn't belong to them, but they had nearly 200 million worth of digital assets stolen. So they have offered a $20 million bug bounty.
Yeah, I don't like this one, obviously, because $200 million is obnoxious. I mean, OPSEC in blockchain is very, very, very important. Luckily, we have some incredible people at Rome that have done this for 4 or 5 decades, OPSEC, and really understand what the risk vectors are. But in crypto, there's new ones. There's constantly people trying to find ways to penetrate everything because the potential gain is so high, right? I mean, you could spend a year trying to hack into something like Mixin, and for $200 million, you could have a team of hundreds, right? Like trying to break into this stuff. So we have to, as a space, get better at this shit. Like we have to get better at some of these preventable things. Like often it's, and we're all, we talked about this on an episode a few weeks ago, that, you know, I've been scammed as much or more than most people. And I've been in the space for a long time. So I know generally what to look for. It's inevitable that it can happen to anybody. But these phishing scams are becoming more and more prevalent and more successful because people just aren't paying attention. Like, you can't click on any link ever that anybody sends you. You shouldn't open any document ever that anybody sends you on your main devices. And if you do, you should open it in enclaves, secure enclaves. Like we have all of that stuff. So all these documents that come to us, I never open documents from a sender I don't know very well. They always go in these enclaves and so on. And not saying that we have a perfect approach to this. I just think as a space, especially when you're using cloud, 2 of the big risk vectors right now have been cloud penetration. Like, so people aren't necessarily breaking your protocol or the cloud. They're just finding their way into your account via phishing, which is unfortunate.
There's a really interesting statement in this article, which is that more than half of all DeFi exploits are cross-chain protocols.
Yeah, I don't understand why that is. I think it brings a lot more vectors in. That there's a lot more areas that you can try to penetrate. I think when there's bridging involved, cross-chain messaging, like we're still just scratching the surface on cross-chain with Wormhole, Layer 0, Axelar, CCIP from Chainlink. Like these are all new, right? And so there's definitely a cycle that we have to go through of evolving these things and understanding their risks. So I guess all I can say here is, you know, we build cross-chain protocols also. So I don't want to blanket say just avoid them until we have it figured out, obviously. But I think, you know, take this stuff with a grain of salt. And, you know, I've always kind of said this, you know, you have to diversify, especially in crypto. You're supposed, like the number one strategy for investment long-term is diversification. Like that's the one thing. Time in the market, diversification, usually the best approach. There is a theoretical limit to diversification when it becomes no longer marginally beneficial. Anyways, I think you should also do that in DeFi. Like, I mean, we've lost money to rugs, we've lost money to fraud, to exploits, to freaking everything. But luckily, it's only been relatively small proportions of our assets, generally speaking. As a business, individually. And so just spreading the love around to different blockchains, to different protocols. Don't be a maxi. If you're in this space long-term, there's no point. Well, really, there's no point in being any a maxi or blindly committed to one channel or one vertical. I think you should explore it all because it really will impact the majority of our lives.
Absolutely. Well, that's our time today, but we didn't get to AI-powered real-time payments. I'm thinking maybe we want to talk more about the intersection of AI and crypto on Friday, on our strange FU Friday day. Seems like we have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I think the AI-powered payments is really cool, but again, poses a lot of challenges. So let's maybe talk about that. Let's maybe talk about that on Friday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we'll do the arms race.
Yeah, we will.
Quick reminder, shout out to Tashi. Tattoo Finance on Evmos, lending protocol for the hoodie. Thank you. We're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on all the major venues. Help us get the word out. Everybody that's listening on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else that we are, help us get the word out. We don't commercialize this thing other than the merch that I wear and Kiara doesn't because nobody likes her. I think that must be right. Yeah, help us get the word out. We're doing this just as a service to our friends and the community and help people learn as much as we can. And that's the idea. So with that, I say to you today, Kiara, go FUD yourself.